I first heard about DMT when I was part of a project at Harvard University, collaborating with Tim Leary and Richard Alpert, which was mostly on psilocybin. It was exclusively on psilocybin um, while it was at Harvard, and which where we did a series of experimental studies, primarily one on involving giving psilocybin to, and this is the synthetic, not the mushrooms, but the ingredient of the mushrooms, to convicts in a prison as an aid to rehabilitation or insight, behavior change, where the idea was that because you had a behavioral index of change because of the recidivism rate. So, we carried out that study, and actually I was involved in that study for about 2 years. I did my internship there, and we did studies with prisoners. We also did studies with psilocybin in a natural supportive setting. Leary's idea was the way to study these substances was not in a clinic and not in a laboratory, and not as an experimenter subject and not as a clinician patient. I mean, not that he was against that, but he wanted to study the effect of these in a supportive, neutral, supportive environment. And then questionnaire studies, and then also we gave it a lot to various artists and writers and musicians and people that had experiences with other kinds of drugs, to basically gather information on how these things should be used. And then finally there was a study with Walter Pankey on the religious implications, and the idea that Leary really was formulated called the set and setting hypothesis, that with any of these psychedelics you don't really can't really get any understanding of what they're about unless you consider the set and the setting. They're not like any other drug where you can say this is the drug effect, this is what it does. You don't get anywhere with that. You have to take into account what is, because they affect consciousness, so you have to develop a new method of studying consciousness, which science really basically is not very good at. And now the things have changed a lot since the 60s, of course, but so in that context, once the Harvard project was ended because the university no longer was uncomfortable with us doing the study there, but we were still all there for a while. We started also working with other substances like LSD. And then at one point we heard about DMT, which had, I think, just recently in the 50s, I believe, isn't that right? Was it first synthesized in the 50s? Yeah.
Yeah, and he injected himself in 56.
Right, right. And see, I was doing, after my doctorate in psychology, I got a postdoctoral fellowship in psychopharmacology from NIMH. So I spent the year taking the second year Harvard University Medical School pharmacology course and reading everything I could find on these drugs to try to inform myself. And so I became aware of that, of the DMT thing, and it seemed interesting. And then I remember we somehow got hold of some, I don't remember who, and then we had to go to Arthur D. Little, who was a local consulting firm, to have them converted into an injectable form. And so we started working with that, which was a little different for us because we weren't really used to injecting drugs. But anyway, we did some studies with that. And when it's injected, it's, well, as you know, a very different kind of experience than the psilocybin or the mescaline or the LSD or anything like that. And primarily in the sense of being extremely intense, at the doses that we were using.